It's got a lot of information that people have spent a lot of time in there, and we've given 2 of these classes before, 2003, 2005. As far as I know, that was the last time it was done. So what we're doing in the front of it is kind of a synopsis of what's in the back, and in the back it's more detailed. Okay, there's a lot more detail. So that's going to be reading on your own. And these books are for you to take home with you. If I were you, I'd write my name on the first blank sheet you got. Okay? Because they're kind of pricey. Because one of the reasons they were is because there's a lot of color pictures in them and stuff like that. So we spend a little bit of money putting these things together. And I do have a few extra copies if you've got somebody at your location that you want to have this kind of training. Okay? I know Jim's back there recording this entire meeting, so we can share that with other folks. Okay? So it's going to be kind of an open discussion that we're doing. Some of it's going to be kind of very detailed, but feel free to ask questions at any time. And really, we want to know what's happening in your departments, in your mining, in your raw materials, some of the, accomplishments and some of the grief you're going through. Okay? So I guess to get this thing started, Richard, I know I had you in the book first, but we're going to do the cost of quality first. And that was put together by Mark Hall. And Mark Hall, what is his actual title, Jim? It's
He's in charge of the masons and our customer complaints, and he acts kind of as a customer liaison. He spends most of his time on the road talking to customers, looking at job sites, talking about the problems, and telling the customers what we're going to do about it, what we can do about it, and working with them. And he's a pretty good liaison between us trying to solve problems and the customer who's got problems. So,
yeah.
And he's also in charge of the masons who are out on the road fixing problems every day.
That's a full-time job. And the one thing I've told Mark, I kind of kid with him, as far as raw materials go, every time I see Mark, I say my job is to put you out of business. You know, I'm trying to put Mark Hall out of business because he is really busy with these stain guys and what they do. But since Mark can't be here with us, Jim Kruger is going to give his segment. So it's over to you, Jim. How are you advancing the slide and all that?
See if we can do something with the lights here.
And before you get going, we tried to put most of what we're going to talk about in these books. I think I only have one subject that we're going to kind of have to elaborate on. But other than that, most everything we're going to talk about should be in this book.
All right. Cost of quality. This isn't a very long segment, but it's probably something you guys need to see. And it's probably something you guys don't get to see a whole lot. It's a bit shocking sometimes. And there's some examples in here. And by the way, we've got 3 managers in here, which is a good thing. Because I tell you what, there's a lot here to think about. And with all we got to do in the plants, you know, worrying about all this background stuff that goes on with the raw materials can be overwhelming sometimes. And I'm glad to see you guys here because I know you guys are kind of new at this too, so it's good information. I wish there were more managers here, but this is something you guys are going to be very familiar with. Cost of quality. Like you said, this is Mark Hall's presentation, short presentation, but it gives you a glimpse into what's going on out in the field after our brick get out there. So let's take a look. In 2014, we spent $1.1 million on correcting mistakes out in the field. Okay, after our brick had already left the plant, shipped, got a new customer, this is what we paid to make things right again. 2015, almost $2 million we spent making things right after the fact. Okay. 2016, 2.2 million. A lot of money to go out the door on something that should have been right when it left our plant. This year, we're at 594,000. He projected it out to be 1.7 million by the end of the year. Our job is to make this number 0, okay? Not maybe doable, but 1.7 million, really? We can spend that money on a lot of other things besides just correcting something we should have done already before the brick left the plant. Who is responsible? Well, what do you think the next slide's going to say? Everybody, of course. The drillers. Let's start from the beginning. The drillers, the guys who go out and drill the first holes to look for the clay we got. The miners who go out and get that clay back out of the ground in some kind of good order and watching quality so we put up good stockpiles. And then the guys who put the stockpiles up and do all that right. We're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about a lot of this stuff right here. Then we send it over to the plant and they prepare it. They grind it. And then the brick machine operators get a hold of it and they extrude it. And then the kiln gets it and they burn it. And then the packagers get it and they package it. And you know what? Things go wrong in every one of these places. Then you get your forklift operator. What do you think a forklift operator can do to the brick? I mean, he's just taking the brick from here to there. What happens? Puts the wrong brick on the truck, of course. I mean, so at all everything has to go right. You know, in order to get that $2 million down to nothing, all of this stuff has to happen right. And of course, there's other things out here, like we didn't even put like salesmen and trucking. A lot of other things are below the forklift operators even. So, but let's face it, guys. If this doesn't go right here, then these poor guys here, they're not going to get it right either, or else it's going to go on the yard and go nowhere. Okay. Let's hope at least it goes into the yard and we don't do anything with it, not out to the customer where now we've got to correct something. But anyway, everybody's in charge of quality, and it starts way up there, out in the mines, and if we can't get it right there, the rest of the guys don't have a chance to get it right in the plant. Oh, there's the truck driver. Sorry, there was one down there. Let's see what the next one says. Oh, everyone's responsible, of course. We all know that. Here's a job. Let me get my notes for a minute. Oh, I do. Here they are. Never mind. Remind me what this one is. Oh, this is kind of a, that one doesn't, that's not a good picture of it. I guess if I knew the job better, I could tell you, but this picture shows it all. This is a school in, this is in Rosenberg, okay? This is one end of the school, and he says all four sides look just like that. It was an ongoing thing. They had to do a lot of touch-up. Look at the range here. Look at the darks, sporadically the darks, and then you got some light brick in here that aren't well mingled, let's say. I'm sure if Mark were here, he'd point out 10 different things he can see in there that weren't the way they were supposed to, but they had to work on this entire building, all four sides, and try to make it right. Here's this is an Elgin job, and it's in Midland. It's out in West Texas. Looks like a school. Here's another close-up of it. Well, let's go back. You can see over here at the expansion joint, that's good. This is not so good. Poor mingling. Think about this for a second. You know, you buy something at Walmart, you get it home, you open the package and it either doesn't quite work right. You take it right back to Walmart. It's like, wow, they sold me a piece of junk. You take it right back. They give you your money back. We're so sorry. You get a brand new one. Imagine you're building a building and it comes out looking like this. You'd be pissed. I mean, you know, they're paying big money for this, and we send them brick that looks like this. The customer's not happy. So, there's another close-up. Mingling, I don't know, some shades came out wrong, but if it had been mingled right, it probably would have been a lot better. But a lot of this starts with the material. Now, this is a thin brick job here, Denver. You don't mind me saying your name because everybody's got problems. The Denver and Richardson, Texas. This was a job that had both thins and full brick on it. And I don't know, Steve, maybe you can tell me what happened. This was before your time, I believe, Steve. I don't know. I just know it didn't turn out right, and the plant had to make more brick to put on it, and then had to get more brick to put on it. And when it ended up at the job, it just didn't look right. Had to do a lot of staining. Let's see. This is in Edinburgh. This is down in the valley. This is Denton, for you guys that are in Denton. Via Roma job on the Performing Arts Center down there at the university. Via Roma, I guess, has been an ongoing thing. A thorn in Denton's side, let's say. Tough to match, and you can see the matching problem. I mean, who wouldn't have an issue when they put a wall that's whatever, 35 feet tall or 40 feet tall there, and you got this going on? I mean, real problems for them. And some of this is, some of this could be material, guys. I mean, getting the Via Roma right, I know is partly material. So, again, that's why we all got to do it right. Elgin job. Not sure where that one is, but anyway, a lot of darks and lights, not good mingling. 3 light brick right in the middle, right next to each other. Just doesn't look good. This is Texas clay, I think. Yeah, Texas clay. Big, too many darks in one area. Needed to be mingled better. So that's what he's got, and trust me, Mark's got a library of these. We could sit here all day just looking at these pictures, one after the other after the other, I mean, we get it right a lot of times too, guys. We have buildings out there that look beautiful, but we got too many that come out with issues like this that have to go back. And can you imagine laying that brick to the top, and these guys go out there with their ladders and their manless and their little paints, and they have to make that wall now look right. We've got checks and balances in our system to keep that from happening. But, things don't always go right. Our job is to try to make sure they go right more and get better. So, who's responsible for quality? We're all responsible. Okay? So that's the short intro.
That page right there, does anybody in here not have that page in the book? I got one extra and I don't. You win the prize. We'll decide there's an extra donut for you. Okay. All right. Very good. Thanks, Jim. And Mark Hall.
Oh, that's my phone.
The lucky folks that don't win something.
Richard, sitting.
Not.
Got a chair, and I'll pull it back there and you can sit for it.
That's fine. Okay. On the agenda, we're going to kind of ease on into geology. And before we do this, really, I wanted to give Mark Hall some kudos, because that guy, man, I'm not sure I'd want his job, to tell you the truth. He gets some of the customers pretty upset when he shows up. So, anyway, it's not all our fault in raw materials, which is what we're really talking about, but in this workshop, we're all responsible. So, Richard, you're going to handle the introduction to geology. Thanks.
Yay! Everybody go to sleep. That's what you can see. This is a mashup of geology and raw materials. I kind of put it into 2 separate areas. Let's just see if I can get this to work. Okay. Basic definition. When I go to schools and whatnot, they always want to know, what do you do? And that varies quite a lot. Geologists do different stuff. It's a huge field, all the way from environmental to manufacturing, like we do, oil and gas, government work, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's the study of the earth and its history, which is a really broad definition. But we're concerned basically with a narrow part of it, which is the clays and the shales. And that's what we make our product out of. Virtually all of it is some sort of clay and or shale together, one or the other, sometimes, just depends on where you're at. All right, so that narrows it all down considerably for us. Makes it a lot easier, so to speak. Now, you can't ignore everything about the geology, okay, but for you all, especially you all in the mining, you kind of sort of can. All right, you're digging this stuff out a lot of times with guidance from us as to where this is and where that is and how you're going to get it out and how you're going to build your stockpile. So you don't really care what the regional geology is, although I do, because I have to go out and find more stuff for you sometimes. Okay, and that affects how it's laid out into your pit, which can affect how easy it is to get consistent material out versus inconsistent material out. So you all from Oklahoma City have it easy because you dig it out and you pile it up. There it is. You know, there are differences as you go from top to bottom in the pit. You know, little minute differences between the layers that were laid down originally, but that doesn't matter on the greater scheme of things. Right? You just hog it all out, put it in the pile. There you go. Other places, like Alabama, for instance, or here in Denton, it is not. It's not even remotely that easy. Okay, it's much, much harder to get that good blend out for a consistent color and consistent materials. So, structure. Now, geologic structure refers to the orientation of the raw material in the ground. So like we were going over that there just a second ago. In Oklahoma City, for instance, it's easy because it's just north of us. It's flat, or pretty much flat. It's not exactly flat. Most of this stuff is never exactly one way or the other. There aren't any absolutes. You don't always have all clay or all sand or what. This is a natural material. It varies a lot in some instances. Okay, we can practically say, okay, this is the clay, this is the sand, this is the whatever, without getting too pedantic about it. But it's never all one thing or another. So generally speaking, it's never exactly flat. Okay, in some places it ain't even remotely flat. Okay, once again, the Alabama example, or here in Denton, where it's pretty wavy in places. So what that means for us is that when you're digging it out, you're not necessarily going to have. We want to make nice, even cuts, flat cuts. You know, take this section, take that section. That may or may not be possible. So, do we have layers? Is it tilted? Is it flat? So on and etc. And it can be, once again, the best example we have at this particular moment is Alabama, where it's pretty much vertical. All right. So from one hole to the next, it varies. From top to bottom, it varies.
Well, you take Rob, what he's dealing with in Bijou.
That, yeah.
If he made that straight cut, he'd have buff and red material.
Yeah.
In the same cut.
The clays don't. The clays may have been laid down originally flat. That's the concept of original horizontality. But as you pile more material on top of it and press down, the more material you pile on top, the more weight that is. You squeeze out the water. You squeeze all that stuff closer together. That causes deformation, causes it to be wavy. All right. If you add in tectonic forces later that push it or move it even further, you can really change the original orientation of the way that stuff was laying in the ground or was deposited. And plus, remember, well, we'll get into this in a second, but it's a big deal for some locations. It's not at all, but it affects the distribution of the material that we want out of the pit. Okay. What do we have? Depositional environments, continental, intermediate, and marine. Once again, that's not so much something you're going to think of, oh hell, we got to mine this particular one and not the other. But it does, once again, affect your material. The changes as that material changed or as it was deposited in different environments get you more or less of certain minerals like calcium, all right, which is we don't want any calcium or calcite in the clays as much as we can get. This is what would get you, say, sand intervals that had more of one mineral than the other that can cause you problems. The change from one type to the other. So, in continental, fluvial, that's river systems, alluvial deposits, which also can make things come and go quickly. All right. Also, in Alabama, and in Arkansas, your alluvial stuff that you get out in Arkansas, that's a floodplain river deposit. Fairly consistent most of the time. It's just the thickness can vary a lot. All right, from one point to the next. But the clays themselves, which were laid down fairly quickly, all right, are not too much variation within them, so that helps out. All right. Lake deposits, which are freshwater. Evaporites, which like the salt lakes. Evaporites where to get your, let's see, your gypsum, stuff of that sort. Think of those types of salts, that you would deposit as, the more water you remove through evaporation, the more you concentrate the minerals and they start clumping together and forming crystals. So, glacial, we don't have to deal with that anymore since no more Minnesota, so we don't have any glacial till or loess or anything like that to have to deal with. And aeolian, which is dunes, windblown sediments and stuff like that. The vast majority of the sediment, especially the sediment we deal with on the surface of the earth, is moved around by water. All right. Yeah, things are windblown. You do have those environments and stuff like that, but for the most part, it's all moved by water and sorted by water. All right, intermediate. Deltaic, like the Mississippi Delta, or like an estuary, bays, or that sort of stuff. So that was where you're having environments that are freshwater and saltwater, or something in between. What does that do? That depends upon the critters living there, or if you have any living there. A good example of that are mud flats and stuff, which we do mine some of stuff of that sort. That were large, flat, areas that were where you had, especially in the late Cretaceous, where you had water all the way up through Texas through all of the central U.S. And you had these large, flat, mudplain-like areas where you'd have the tide come in, drop off stuff, and then come back out. Just build those layers up over time. And then marine, everybody's favorite. Beach, sandstone, shoreline, shallow water, limestone, mudstone, deep water, more limestone, dolomite, and then abyssal stuff, which would be cryptocrystalline quartz, which is your chert, chalcedony, flint, same stuff. It's all, silicon dioxide. All right, and once again here, it's making sense of stuff that when you look at it in the pit sometimes doesn't make sense, or you don't think it would make sense. All right, so moving from the generalized stuff of the geology we were talking about, which once again, the regional geology, the regional structure, the stuff that I'm looking at when we're either trying to get you more raw material or plan out different mining scenarios, or how this is going to work or how that's going to work down the road especially. We'd like to get it to where we could have all of your pits planned out pretty much from beginning or even where you're at all the way through when you're not going to be mining it anymore. It'd be nice to have at least a general plan, which is what we're trying to do for most of these, and it takes a while, unfortunately. It can be kind of tedious to mine, literally on the computer, mine it all out. What does that get you? At which point do you break over and you can't make the stockpiles that you were accustomed to making? All right, are there changes in there? We ought to be able to look ahead and say, where are there possible problems? Then we can go out and try to deal with that years ahead of time instead of, right now, which sometimes crops up. So, raw material. Like I say, we're mostly concerned with the clay and shale. Now, there's always other minerals present. Like I say, it's never 100% one thing or another. So there's always sand in that clay, and there's always clay in that sand, to one degree or another, okay? And we will frequently need other additives to our brick bodies for various reasons that may or may not fall under the shale category. So that's your non-plastics if you need it, if you need additives for color, whatever. There's almost always something that needs to be added to that thing to make it more consistent. All right. Clay is an umbrella term for many different minerals. They're the result of chemical and physical weathering of granite, usually in the presence of warm and wet tropical conditions, which not everybody really thinks about. We have a good example of that, especially when we were up in Minnesota, because you could see it in place. All right. I don't know if that's in the office or not for you to look at, because I may have ripped it off to take to schools to show off to kids. But what you're literally doing is decomposing the granite. The granite is rotting, so to speak. It's chemically changing from one mineral to another. All right. After it does that transition, which in some of these rocks you can see in process, okay, it's physically weathered. Once again, the water coming over it, the freeze, the thaw, you're breaking it apart, transporting it with the water, and when you transport it with the water, you sort it. The chunkier stuff gets sorted out from the finer grain stuff, the clays. Clay is the minerals that make up the clay when it's transformed are 1/256th of a millimeter or smaller. So small that they stay suspended in water with the slightest agitation. So in any sort of stream or any sort of shallow water environment, you're not really depositing clay, you're depositing sand and silt, something bigger. In order to deposit the clay, most of the time you have to have at least enough water depth so that you get away from any wave action or any movement in the upper part of the water, and it can start settling out towards the bottom where it's really, really, really still. Okay? And that's what builds up your clay layers. Now, we usually concern with 3 major mineral groups of clay: illites, kaolinites, and montmorillonites. Once again, super small in the clay minerals. Illite itself, there's 3 slides here that talk about each one of the different clay types. I even put the formula, which you're all terribly interested in that one, on these things. The one thing to actually notice about the formula for some of these things is that there are replacement atoms in there. So, once again, it's a natural material. The chemical formula for an illite at your location is not exactly the same as somebody else that may be mining an illite at their location, even though you don't know it's an illite. And meaning that's why it behaves a little different in your kiln. That's why it's not quite the same as over at somebody else's plant. You see, this is what some of the stuff that can make a difference that you can't see and you don't necessarily think about. And that's why, getting back to this, going through the kaolinite, going through the montmorillonite, that's why we test it. The big thing to take away from this presentation for the raw materials and the geology is that's why we drill it and that's why we test it, because you can't look at it and say, oh, that's going to do this. All right, you can sometimes if you've mined that forever, if it's been real consistent. Most of the time, yeah, practically you can pull it out and say, oh yeah, okay, we've seen this a lot. This particular grayish looking stuff that comes out of our pit always fires white, or whatever it is. Okay, but a lot of times you can't, even though it's looks exactly the same, even though it feels exactly the same, tastes exactly. None of you weirdos eat this stuff, do you? I don't.
A good example of that is seaweed.
Yeah.
We got this orange red clay coming out of the ground, and all of a sudden it fires buck.
Right.
It's been firing red all that time.
Looks the same, starts behaving different. Once again, this stuff is not all deposited. It's deposited over for us a long period of time. Geologically speaking, not so much a long period of time, but for us a long period of time. The chemical conditions when the lower part of it was being deposited versus the upper part being deposited can be tens of thousands of years or more different. And so those are completely different chemical compositions necessarily that are happening. All right, and so that makes sense then when you think about it. Oh, well, we're mining this stuff out and firing it, and it's not behaving the same way. You know. So, yeah, does it really matter? Well, yes and no. All right, it does and it doesn't. But what you all, that's the big point, is why we need to test it, why we need to drill so much, why we test the stockpile as often as we do, and why it's really important when we all get together and figure out the best plan to proceed for building a stockpile, and that everybody sticks to it and everybody understands what we're wanting to do, why we're wanting to do it, and then raise your hand and jump up and down if stuff starts looking weird, because we can't cover every every inch of material that you've got in there. We can drill, generally speaking, the closest we drill together is 100 feet apart, and we don't do that very often. All right, most of the time it's 200 feet apart. A lot can happen in 200 feet. All right, different things can happen. Stream beds can be put in. I've seen that at McQueenie. You're walking along clay, hey, there's a big pocket of sand right there from a little stream valley that came through, nice U shape. Over at Elgin, there's big, lozenge-like chunks of sandstone that are more competent than the surrounding area that are just sticking out of the wall. Where the hell did that come from? It's just there. And if you don't happen to hit that with a drill, you don't even know it's there. All right. So it's even worse if you bring everything down to the either, I guess you'd say, the chemical level or the crystal level. A lot of stuff can happen that you just can't see or can't predict. All right. So we do the best we can in estimating what you've got and what you should do. But stuff can always happen. So that's why you go through this carefully. And I think there's the raw material optimization. Just go through that later. That's the general program of how that works. There's the time scale and where everybody fits on it. I think I have everybody on that. I may have missed somebody or not. I don't think so. And that's it for me on that one. So any questions so far?
What the hell are you talking about?
All right, cool. Yeah, if there are any, you may want to take a break. If there are any questions, if you have something later, either email me, call me, see me afterwards, whatever, no problem. All right, we can always work through stuff. And I think it's break time?
Almost.
Almost, okay.
We're a little bit ahead, so I want Matt, if you have a second. Sure. Let me strap this thing on you real quick. Richard is talking about breaking it down to a smaller level. We're about to get a XRF machine, right?
Correct.
I know this is a little unexpected, but
No, that's fine.
since we're ahead, I kind of want everybody to know what that machine is and what it does. Because, just one example, if we want something to fire red, we got L stand, right? Well, what's going to determine, Richard, how red that material is going to fire?
Lots of times it's the iron content, but not always.
Right.
So we'd be nice to know if it's the iron content that makes it fire red, or if it's something we do, or if it's some other mineral, right?
Right. So what we can do is we can say, okay, we drilled it, we sampled it, you guys tested it, you fired it at the plant temperature,
Yep.
and it's something in the ballpark. Well, guess what? We drilled right next to it, and it doesn't look anything like it. So now we need to know a little bit more about what components are in this material, because it looks exactly the same. Right, Rob? So at that point, we're getting an XRF machine, so if you could tell them what that is.
Well, what that's going to do is allow us to do more predictive type things. Like Bobby's saying, what we do now is you guys mine the material, you send it to us, we do our due diligence, we show you everything and say, okay, this is what you have. What this is going to allow us to do is, okay, this is what you have, but maybe this isn't what you want. So where do we find what we want? When we do the beginning of the process, like what Richard's talking about, when you go out and do the original drilling and stuff, now we can take these samples and put them in this machine, and it's going to tell us how much silica is in there, how much alumina is in there, how much sodium, calcium, potassium, and for what we're talking about in here, most importantly, iron. Because the iron content will basically tell you if you're going to be able to make buff brick, red brick, dark red brick, white brick, things like that. And, what we're constantly trying to do is two things: get colors and products that the customer wants, and if and when we get those, keeping them consistent. And this machine is going to allow us to do that. And one thing we're going to be able to do is go back in time and get samples that you guys have done over the years and pull them out and put them in under this machine and get readings from them. So we'll be able to set a pretty large database of material that you've worked with in the past, and that gives us even better opportunity to compare it with what we're going to get going forward.
So see, take Hawthorne. He may be putting up, I don't know, you guys still using the overburden off the Tyndall and stuff like that?
Some, yeah.
And you're using that for coloring, right? Or no coloring. Or non-plastic, is that what you mean? Non-plastic. Okay. Well, in some cases, though, we do use, like L-stand, we're trying to build that really red tan stockpile. But you may want to know how much iron is in this. So the best way for us to know is to drill it, or you drill it, according to your minimum mining standard. And he can tell you. And what's a number? I think Garth said it was anything above 4 starts to give you that coloring power in iron.
Yes, that is correct.
So why? Can you explain why iron is so important in it? Why some of these guys might not know?
Well,
Does everybody in here understand what iron and the iron content in a clay does?
Basically, the simple way to look at iron content is the higher the iron content for our purposes here. The higher the iron content, the more red it's going to fire. Now, every plant fires at different temperatures and all that, but everybody's between, say, 1850 degrees and 20 2150. Denver may be lower, 2200. Material that has 5, 6, 7% iron is going to fire red in all those temperatures.
Below that, it's gonna be what?
Well, yeah, exactly. Yes, that's right. And when you go down below 5, 6%, and you're talking about some of the Texas clay material, your white clay, we'll test that. That'll have little to no iron in it. And then materials like tan or the buff stuff that you guys make, or I don't know anybody here from Perla or in Arkansas where they make the, yeah, there you go. Watch where they make the, well, I know you guys aren't doing the buff brick anymore, but you have. Your iron contents there are going to be down in the 1 or 2% range. So even though it doesn't appear as a red, there's enough iron in there to give it color. But like your stone cold white, like you see at Perla or you see at Texas Clay, this XRF machine will show that as little to no. I mean, I'm not going to say it's going to be 0, but it's going to be a really, really tiny amount. Whereas material at, let's see, who's a real nice dark red, Steely or Denver's red, you're going to find that the contents there, or Fort Smith's red, or any Tulsa's red, Oklahoma City, yeah, I mean, some of the dark reds are going to be up in the 6, 7% range.
Well, let's look at the other side of the coin. Now we've got a gold property, which we want to get something close to an off-white.
Right.
So if there's iron showing in there, they may miss the mark.
Yeah.
See?
So that's a good point. We won't only use it to determine red and various reds, but you can also use it to look at the buffs and the whites and when you're getting down to the lower iron contents, where it actually may be more critical, where something might be going from 0.5% to 0.7%, and that might not seem like much at all. And if you were trying to get red, it wouldn't be much. You'll find the difference between 6 and 6.2 will be minimal. You won't be able to tell the difference. But the difference between something like 0.5 and 0.7 could be critical when you're trying to get an off-white or a buff. So this machine is going to really allow us to really drill down, especially when it comes to iron, and hopefully will help us be more predictive and be up front and be able to decide where we want to be with the color and not have to kind of deal with it after the fact like some of the stuff that Jim was presenting.
Well,
go ahead, Alan.
Is this going to allow us the opportunity to look at that at the time we drill it? Like right now, we look at basically a 3-bench, a top, middle, bottom, and we ratio when we build our piles. Maybe it needs to be a 1.
Yes.
1.
Yes. Yes.
That's the idea.
Yes, that's exactly right.
That sample fired red. This other sample
Is
from the
orange.
same plant or let's say both fired red. Are those exactly the same iron content?
Right.
Not necessarily. Right? What looks red may not have a whole lot of iron in it for your particular location, or what's even sicker, for that particular layer.
Right.
All right. And so the idea is that we get a better handle on how when you blend this, when we say we're going to get 50% of this, 50% of that, or whatever, you do get out at the end of it something that looks like what you want to look like. Whereas right now we have to kind of guess at it and then run it through, and then as it changes, maybe that still works, maybe it doesn't.
Well, and what happens is
with more data,
right.
You can keep up with that. You can say, okay, the iron contents are changing as we move through the pit. We're going to have to adjust that ratio as we go to keep getting that color.
or mine a bigger area.
Right, and especially if one of your raw materials is the primary coloring agent, and where you look at bars, and like Richard said, right now all we have is the capability of looking at what we've drilled and what we fired and say red is red, okay, this one's a little lighter, and then you add that into a recipe that has 3 or 4 other ingredients, and the weaker of those two, even though they appear to be pretty close, as you divvy it up into a bunch of other materials, may end up having more of an effect than you think it will. And then your final product comes out lighter, and you're wondering why. Like at Denton with the Blend 100, things like that.
Well, I can't think of any mining we do that this can't help.
Yes.
George, I'm thinking about you. We got two of the most difficult mining regions we have, Denton and Colorado, to me. That's the most challenging, I think, we have as far as inconsistency goes. I'm not even bringing Alabama up. Nobody in Alabama is
That's
here.
kind of what I was sitting here thinking myself, like out at Harvard,
Yeah.
you have those 2 black clay materials,
Yeah,
and they look almost exactly the same. The shading is a little bit different.
exactly.
But one burns red and one burns buff.
That's it. exactly what we got getting this machine for.
Right.
And it's going to take some time for us to do this, but what we're into right now, working with you guys and a lot of y'all, is predictable stockpiles, right? We're trying to predict the stockpile before you, hey, go over here and mine this, and you should get this. That's going to help us with this color ahead of time, because that's where we're lacking the most. And we've done XRF a lot in the past, but it cost a bunch of money.
Yeah.
I mean, a bunch. So here we are spending, this thing's going to have a payout of what? Months?
XRF is nothing new, but we send it all to the NBRC.
Yeah.
And it costs us, every sample is expensive.
Yep.
We gotta ship it, we gotta wait for them to test it, they send us results. And to do it on the scale that we're talking about here, we're gonna be able to up that scale 100 times.
Yeah, exponentially,
1,000
huge.
times,
Yeah.
once we have our own machine.
What's the time frame on that?
It's a good question.
Well, results from the machine, say for instance you go out and drill something, you bring it in, you get results like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, you read it off of the machine, spits the result out. You don't have to wait for it to be fired, you don't have to wait for it, this, that, and the other.
Same
When
day,
you
basically.
work
We can
out,
go out in the field
Yep.
in your bench, because you're saying, hey man, what about this? And we can literally tell you in the
Yeah.
field. This is a pardon me?
Portable,
Yes,
yes.
portable is nuclear powered. Okay, so yes, I'm not worried about it.
Sort
I don't
of,
have
but-
much hair anyway. You got
Yeah.
right there, so and I'm not gonna have any more kids or anything like that. But we're gonna have about, let's see, Trey, you're gonna get trained up. Richard, me, you, and we're gonna have enough people trained up. We have to get certified and all this other business. Take this thing out in the field and handle it. But it's gonna get to a point where we probably need 3 of them. You know.
this allows us to have, and this is a technical term, a shitload more samples than what we had
Yeah.
previously. You know.
So yeah, as far as the time frame goes, Monday morning,
Yep.
the 19th, we're supposed to get that machine, a machine here. I don't know if it's the one we're buying.
No, it is. Right?
And
It's ours,
coming
yeah.
here, and they're going to start training us immediately on this thing. And as soon as we all get certified on it, we're going to be going to work, and we're going to start right here at home in Denton, Texas. And we're going to come find you and get you nuclear powered up. Okay?
And what we'll do is we're going to deal with what you guys are dealing with right now. And then as much as possible, we're going to start going back in time and filling in and getting every bit of data that we have, that we still have available here, into this database so that we can...
Raw samples. that you
Yeah,
have.
exactly. Because,
Can this work on fire?
Yes.
yes.
Okay, well that's even better. See, so that way we can go back and get your
Yeah.
baseline on fire too.
Yeah.
So this thing's got huge potential. So that we don't have to send these things out for hundreds of dollars per sample or whatever. It
Yeah,
costs.
basically we were only able to select certain samples when it was a critical thing or some big to-do because it was very expensive. Now we'll be able to do everybody's samples all the time.
Mhm. Well, we're still. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
You got it.
Was that pretty informative? I mean, it's kind of a new deal, you know. So.
Well, along the lines of new, talk a little bit about checking a fire sample. I mean, what, do you have to have a piece of it, or can you actually check a brick in the wall? And I was thinking some of those pictures,
Well-
dark
You
and a light.
can't just
what's the-
look at it. You gotta process it.
No, you can.
Hey man, we're helping you, okay?
He showed us this. Yeah, if you have well, within the same brick, yeah, you can, because it's a very small, where it reads, it's a very small spot. So you could actually, yeah, okay, so here's a brick right
Put
here
it in the machine.
that's got, no, I got it. Here's a brick right here with 2 different colors on it. Yeah. You could take a reading off this part of the brick and take a reading off that part of the brick.
Okay.
So yeah, and it will give you 2 different
Go out
readings.
to a job that was 25 years old, and hey, we just did an ad on a match job for this thing. And you know
Right.
what, we're a shade and a half or
Right.
off. What's the deal? You would be able to go
Mm-hmm.
get a sample and say, well, the iron content back 20 years ago
Right.
was here, and today it's this.
Yes. But then you'd still have to go, as a plant, you'd have to go tie that back to your raw materials. Right, yeah.
Any plant temperature and your
Yes.
process.
That's right. But the answer to the question is yes, you can do that.
Wow.
Now, I don't know how that, like you said, I don't know what that would tell you.
Everything else matches that point.
Exactly.
But it's got a lot of potential. A lot
Yeah.
of potential.
You can do it on fired samples. More so, you're going to do it on raw samples because, like you said, the fired samples, all that would do is you could backtrack that. But
Well, we're gonna get into later on block mining and predicting stockpiles and things of that nature. So we're starting this whole process with this XRF with raw materials.
Yep.
Okay. So wow.
Yeah, this will be done on the raw, the samples that come in from the stockpiles, as well as, more importantly, really, the drill samples that come in.
Well, those comps on the stockpiles, that's going to be
Yeah.
Don't. I mean, we're advertising this as a miracle machine, but let's get it in here.
Right.
Because there is a way to process each sample.
Yes.
So that when you put it under there, it reflects properly.
That's right.
And gives you a true reading. It's not just like you can hold it up to anything in the
Right.
room and it'll.
Yeah, you're not going to just go around and ding, 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 ding. No, it does take some preparation, and to make sure that you get consistent, you know that your numbers you can compare. You have to make sure you prepare the sample. But the portability is true. But it isn't quite as easy as just grabbing it and bang. You have to. There's some instructions and things you have to follow to do it. But it's going to give us a whole different set of numbers and information that we've never really had access to.
Database we're
Yeah.
gonna set up and everything. So.
Now it'll take a while, so you guys have to be patient, because once we get it in here, we're talking it's a lot of samples, because I know each of you guys have your own little world that you're focused on, but we have to focus on all of your places. So yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I can. Yeah, exactly. No.
Y'all gonna hire a person to fill that data in geotech? No.
Let's see. I don't know that the person that would answer that question is in here. Good idea, but I don't know.
You're gonna have to.
Okay, well we're about 5 minutes ahead of schedule, so if y'all want to take a quick 5-minute break,
Eat a donut.
bathroom break, whatever.
Eat a donut.
Eat a donut. Somebody eat these donuts over here, Ricardo. Get some coffee.
Want your mic back?
When Trey gets through with this, we'll pick on some places a little bit. Go ahead, Trey.
All right, I'm the driller for Acme Brick. I come out. I've been to most of y'all's places. Some of it's been a while. Some people don't even know that we have a drill crew. Yeah, but I'm here to actually talk to y'all about the types of drilling that we have, the drill logs, and just kind of get y'all to understand exactly what we can do for y'all. This is our drill rig. This is actually set up on the TAM pit.
What kind of rig is it?
This is a CME 75 drill rig. It's set up for, actually, we got 3 types of drilling. We got the continuous drilling, which is what we normally do on most y'all's properties. We have core drilling, and we have hollow stem drilling. The continuous drilling, like I said, is what we do the most. It gives us the bulk samples that we can make those bars with. As you can see, it's got the flights. We bring the material up. It actually gives us the most material that we can make that bar with.
Just about here. That's the.
Yeah. So we actually go down, pull it out of the ground, we take the samples.
Like a corkscrew.
Like a corkscrew, pigtail, whatever you want to say. Our core drilling. To me, this is the most fascinating drilling. We don't do it as much. But as you see, it gives us exactly what's in the ground and how it comes out. This is actually golden. You can see the core boxes.
Vertical formation there.
I've got to do this in Tulsa. That was quite fun. And then we got hollow stem. It is kind of a mixture of both. We get the core drilling, but it's for like our clays. We do it in Sealy. So
It's undisturbed. Same kind of core sample you get using fluid. It's a lot more economical because we don't need a water truck and all that.
but we can't do it in the harder surfaces. So like when we're in the shells, we can't do that. So what my biggest job is deciding when we go down, we pull it out, when is the sample done? I have to look at what type of color's out there. If I see a material change in the, if it goes from clay to sand, you know, is there lime in it? Is there no lime in it? You know, for some of y'all, that's a big deal. If there's lime in it, it can take this quality and go away if there's just a little bit. I was told, what was it, one? What did you say the other day? One lime pop can do.
Oh yeah, 1 line.
We're on 1,000 bricks.
1,000 brick, just one piece of lime.
That's right. Like rose gravel.
Yeah.
Side. Yeah.
So if y'all know it's there and y'all put it on the stockpile, or if y'all don't know it's there, we put it on the stockpile. We can run a lot of brick. So here you can actually see where the difference is. So it was lighter, it had a lot of clay in it, and then down here it goes to yellow with a lot of sand. I went from dark to a light, so we change our bags when we see that.
So you're honing in on the different colors in the formation?
Different colors. If I see that the material changes but the same color, it's we change the bags. You can tell by the footage. We pull everything out of the ground and we can tell the footage with how far we are, and that goes into our drill logs. So our drill logs, we'll T-post everything that we drill. We got a hole. So if y'all go on your U drive, you can find out what hole it is. Y'all can get your logs. It'll tell you exactly where it's at, the elevation. I think Bobby's going to talk about that here in a minute. We put the elevation on it. If I don't have it in the field, it will be put on later on. And then, as you can see, I got one mark for each foot I go. This was a 50-foot hole. There's 50-foot marks. And, well,
So you got different logs for different depths?
yeah, this one's a 20-foot log. I'm looking at only going 20 foot. I can go it, but here's the color, reaction, tendencies, etc. It's kind of split in half, and then the material type. So if I see it's a lot of clay, if it's sandy, it'll be described on this side. As you can see right here.
What it is, and then you got the description of it.
So with these logs, I'll have your burn color, your sand, silt, clay percent. There's a spot for it. It's all on the U drive. You can get this and you can use the logs exactly what y'all want to do. So this one started off dark gray sand, but it's clay. There's iron streaks. Of course, we don't know how much iron, but I saw that there was iron streaks in there, so we did that. All of these on here, if it gets hard, see these lines going on the side, if I felt it was really hard, that's what that means. The more lines there are, the harder it is for me to drill it. Water tables, some of y'all worry about the water tables. It'll tell you if there's water in that property. If I'm pulling out water, it's going to be there.
Take it to the bank.
Take it to the bank. And then, like I said, you can go in and you can actually fill out all this stuff that you need. It might not be on this paper in the U drive, but you can use it.
So you put the water symbol on there, and you don't always write the word water.
We usually do both. But
Sometimes you get water more than once, right?
correct. So
And see those lines you're putting in there, the more dense the formation gets, or the harder it gets, the more lines you put in.
yes, sir.
That's really more for the mining guys, right?
It really is.
Kind of tell them if it can get harder, then they have to
You might have to rip it or
quit.
no. Any questions? I was supposed to give 10 minutes, and I think I'm right at like 9. So,
Oh,
Trying to say you don't have time for questions?
well, I mean, if y'all want to ask
Well, we
questions,
got a lot of questions.
okay.
you said it's on the U drive, so what are you doing?
So when I scan them, when I get back in, I scan them. I download it on the U drive. We go into each one of y'all's plant has an exploration folder, and in that it all has drill logs, and y'all can go in there and find whatever drill log it is. I usually do it in packets of 5 or 6.
a PDF file,
Yep.
meaning you could print just one page or all the pages. You know, we'll try to update those, you know, as we go on. But like you said, you may have one where the PSC stuff isn't filled out. You may have one that is. You know, but one way or the other, you can get that data.
And if it's not in there for some reason, call here and we'll get it to you. And we'll make sure it gets on the meter.
Yep.
How long does it take you to run your samples and all that? Once you get that?
Matt, that's actually a question for Matt.
A couple of
It sure
weeks
is, Matt.
from start to finish. And I'll go through a more detailed presentation on what we do later this afternoon. But it's usually a couple weeks from when it first comes in raw to having the fired bars completely tested. Sometimes a little shorter, but we'll always tell people.
Couple of weeks. Come on.
You'll see why. You'll see why.
On that note, there's two things that will dictate this. One is David Mickey walks in here and says, we need some results on this right away. Where everything else gets put on hold and we jump on it immediately.
Still 2 weeks though.
Otherwise, as it comes to the lab, we're getting on them in order so they can do it right away.
That's a canned statement, though, man.
We've had that conversation.
Right.
So,
I got one 40-foot sample here, but that's not how it works. He's got to recognize when it changes, and he's got to make all those markings on there in order to get good data back here. Because we're going to test the sample he gives us. If he says there's 3 feet of this material, we're going to test that 3 feet. If he says it was 25 feet of the same stuff, we're going to test that bag as one sample of 25 foot. So if he doesn't know what he's looking at, we don't get good data. So these guys that are out there drilling are good at what they do and can recognize the changes that they need to see.
Yeah, I mean, if the drill crew shows up to your location, what I try to do in my day of drilling, I go see the plant manager. What kind of problems are you having with your product? You know, that's the first thing you do. And after that, then you introduce yourself, tell them what you're going to be doing. Then you go out and see the mining guys. What kind of problems are you having with your stockpiling? You know?
If you actually have a 25-foot section, like you said, that new machine you're going to get, just because it looks the same, don't mean it burns.
Be a composite, you know. But, I mean, if you're taking a core sample, you can do it as often as you want to. Yeah. I mean, it's the thing about the continuous flight augering that he's talking about. That is accurate within a half a foot when we're logging. When we're core drilling, whether it be hollow stem or fluid, you're accurate within, you're 100% accurate. It's an undisturbed sample, see? So yeah, I mean, you can hit that thing all along. It's going to be interesting sometimes.
Like George said, he's got clay right on top of him that looks just alike, it burns different. But it seems to be a pinpoint where that change actually takes place.
That's true. Well, we hope to, yeah. Because also, you got to remember, you may have some iron stringers running through there that's making that whole clay deposit fire that red that you want. That don't mean it's a bad thing. That means you want to make sure you include it when you're mining. There are times like siderite that you don't want to include it so much.
And also, if you have time, because we all have so much time, right? Go out and watch the guys drilling, or see what's happening. They're all good with that, you know. And you can see it coming out of the ground. You can see what it looks like, and you see all these sorts of things. You know, most of the time we're all terribly busy, but if you can make it out once or twice, especially if it's something really critical that's, something weird going on, it might help.
Well, Trey, when you're down there working in Elgin, did anybody come out and watch your drilling? It's a yes or no question.
I'm being told no.
You're being told no.
One has. I'm not saying he never has, but yeah, he has.
Okay. Well, I mean, Juan, you're going to be doing the mining.
Right.
Be a good idea to see it come out of the ground. So, and the plant manager, you know, all those people to make a visit to what's going on out there with the drilling.
No, we just out there mining. We go up there in the morning with them, and we visit, see what's going on. I know if I go out there in the afternoon, he's dead tired. I mean, he worked in the heat. He's gonna. So we let him go home. We don't want to bother him much, but we go in the morning or sometime during the day. We talk about what's going on.
Good.
What materials he get. Where's he getting me out of this hellhole we got right now? And I mean, just we kind of work together.
Okay. Well, staying involved is good. All right. Let's go to get that picture of the gold that I was telling you about. Yeah. Nope. Okay, back out of that. That's where I'm going. I just want to show a picture first.
No, we almost had a hog out there.
Yeah, let's see. It should be it's at the bottom.
You got plenty of hogs at Elgin.
I thought it was.
Yeah, they come up to you and say hello.
It's I have a note on it.
When we were out there surveying for some holes at Elgin,
Huh?
one of the, there's a group of pigs out there
It's
that
just a
did kind of amble off
picture.
once we drove up in the truck. We get out,
Okay,
stuff
that's
together,
it.
go out and survey, and one
Yeah.
little piglet comes around
Perfect.
the trees there, kind of trotting along like, what's up? Moves on off into the, they have no problem.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna kind of trade since with your segue there on your drill log. You were talking about a lot of that information's on top of it. You got the elevation up there. We just went through, Rob and Steve, a thing up in Golden. You recognize this? That's a very recent picture. See my lightning bolt? Okay. Lightning bolt is pointing at an iron seam that's running through here. Put that in that report that I sent to you. Remember it? Okay. I don't remember what the difference in elevation is here, but between this doesn't do it justice on how far and how steep this actually is. Okay. This is what we call the hog back on the Golden. And this particular one, believe it or not, I don't have a picture with me, but we had to get in there with dozers and cut shelves in there and get the drill rig in there. Yes?
Where's the mine?
Golden,
I'm trying
Colorado.
I'm trying to find the mine in the picture. Can you?
This is the mine. All the material comes off of this slope right here. Rip and push. Okay, it's a rip and push method that they're using up here. It's a kaolin type material. And what we're trying to do is to make a what color stockpile? Off-white, right? Something like that. Light as possible. And this particular pile came up a little bit dark. Okay? So one of the things we have another property that's really close to it. It's called Dakota. And it's even more challenging than this. Very, very steep. So we're looking at going up there after you get through core drilling with Cedar Park, and we're going to go up there and do their core drilling too. While we're up there, I think Rob, you, or somebody said, well, y'all need to do some drilling on the Golden. Remember? Somebody mentioned it or something? Well, let's go with the drilling that we've already got. So what we did is Richard made a trip up there, and let's go ahead and fire up that elevation thing I'm doing.
Elevation.
Yeah, okay. So what we did quite a bit of drilling on this thing with a lot of dozer work, spent a lot of time in it. When was that, Rob? 2013, 2014, something like that.
13.
So we come up there and we put in some drill holes all along this slope, because remember what they're doing is rip and then they go back up and they push. Had a D10 dozer out there. Sometimes you shoot it ahead of time and then they'll go out and rip and push. Very hard material. So Richard goes out there and with his GPS equipment, which one was you using? The Topcon? So you were using this guy. So he goes out there and relocates and repositions himself on the drill hole. So what he did is he reshot the elevation of where the hole was drilled originally. Well, instead of going out there, and it was a very expensive job to do, and re-drilling the hole, let's scroll down, Jim, or someone. We'll scroll down to the first log. So what he did, Richard shot these holes in, and then on that list up there, he said take off 2.3 feet. So we've taken off 2.3 feet, and you can see it was dark buff material that they were mining. Okay? So we took the liberty to write this from Geotech, what the fired results were, the PSC results and the fired color. Went ahead and put all that data on that log. So now we're taking what I and Trey is doing, and we're adding to that log. So the log's pretty powerful. It's out there telling you what's under your feet, what you're going to mine. So instead of having to re-drill the hole that we went down only 30 feet here, we can just go out and get an elevation on it, and you can find out exactly where you're at on that log. Scroll down some more. So see, another 30 foot. These are shallow, so we're at the bottom of that hill, starting to work our way up. Took 4.4 feet off. Keep on going. See, that was buff. We were off after a white. So keep on going. Okay. We took 9.5 feet off in this area where that hole was. Look what that color was. So see, if we'd had this log in front of us ahead of time before we mined it, we could have predicted what your stockpile was going to be. Keep going.
We didn't mine that area.
Excuse me?
This is the north part. We didn't mine it.
There's 9.5 feet missing, Rob.
What's the 2.3?
Go back to that previous one.
That was the first one.
9.5 feet.
Which one's that? 6?
Yeah, wherever 6 is. Okay.
That's toward the south of the
Okay.
forward slope.
Keep on rolling. So we got some pink in there. This exercise is not to beat anybody up. It's just to let you know where you're at with the previous drilling that we busted our humps out there to get you. We got a light red here. Keep on going. Now the holes are getting deeper, and that means we're going up the hill. We have a floor because we had a certain elevation that we're permitted for, which was Robinson's elevation. Remember that?
Because water, yeah.
Well, for whatever the reason, we had a certain elevation, so we wanted to make sure that we cored to that floor. So by the time we got through mining, it's flat. Let's keep going. We got 12.1 feet missing here. It was a buff. Keep on going. Okay, 8.4 feet. You're in the buff. Keep on going. We don't have too many more. 6.3 feet. You're in the off-white. That means you're getting toward the top of that, much higher elevation, because the top of that hill really had some good whites. Keep going. Okay. Then a light buff. We're still in it. Keep going. This current elevation, by the way. 11.9 feet off-white. I like that dirty log. See, somebody was getting dirty out there that day. 9.7 feet off-white, so you're still in that. And you can see what was below it too, see? So off-white, you're in good shape there. And that was a pretty deep hole up there. So how deep are these holes going? Huh? See, that one's 108 feet. Why do we want to re-drill 108 feet when we were missing how much? We only mined 13 feet. Hell, it just seems like a waste of money to send the rig back out there to do all that work after we've, anyway. I think you guys are starting to get the point. Go on down to we're almost done with it. Okay, there's another elevation. We didn't get too much right there. I guess we're toward the top, right, Rob? Okay, off-white, good material. What you got, one more? That's the last one? Okay. So I think you can understand. So what can happen here, Richard? we need an elevation all of a sudden. We're at any given plant somewhere, and we've got a 100-foot drill hole out there. They've mined for a year. All of a sudden, I'd like to know, I mean, Hawthorne calls up and says, man, I need to know where I'm at. Okay? Well, what are we going to do?
So there's several things. I can run out there and shoot it again for you, depending upon our schedule, depending on how long it takes me to get there. If you know that, like Rob said, we didn't mine the bottom. You didn't mine the floor on the north side of that pit. You know you didn't change that, or you didn't significantly change that. And let's say, for instance, you know that there's a T-posted hole location where you didn't change it, right? So I know that this location where I'm standing at with the T-post, that was drilled somewhere in that neighborhood. It doesn't have to be exact. And you've got the elevation on the log, and you can see, let's say you can see, where the other one is that you want to know what the difference is. I need to know what's that difference over there. But if you can reference it to something like that that you know hasn't changed, or hasn't changed much, you can figure that out. All right? You can tape that off. You can do some basic trig to get you what's that elevation over there. And you can do it with a hand level.
Yep.
Like this. All right, where you level it out and you look at somebody over at the other location. You got somebody down at that location that you want to know the height of with a survey rod. Survey rod, yeah, you're right. Survey rod, which has the feet on it. You know what your height is from your eye down to the ground when you're standing straight and perpendicular and all that kind of good business. Where this dude hits that height over there, that's your difference. So if you're looking at it from the side, now I get close. All right, you're standing here.
Well, there you go, right?
Accurate representation. Okay, and you got another guy standing right here with a survey rod. You're looking to see what's that difference. The difference between where you've hit it there is where your hole is at right, or your pit is at right now. You can use that for changes in your pit, changes in your stockpile. You're standing on top of the stockpile. You got a survey rod of somebody that's standing on the ground on the side of the stockpile, and you look, the right way. You're looking perpendicular across. Where it hits, you do the math of subtracting, and your eye height, that's what your level is at. You can do it with an eye level like this, which was pretty cheap. I don't remember how much this was. I don't remember.
Like
$12, $15
yeah, $15
like
I think.
Not much. This is David White. Some of these are expensive. Some of these are $80 or $90. You don't necessarily have to have the most expensive. You can also use something like this. This was about $40. This is a laser level, a self-leveling laser level, which
Good for 40 feet.
good for 40 feet and paints a cross out. So it's easier to see.
And you can put it on anything. You can put it on a piece of PVC.
You kind of sort of see it on the wall over there now. All right. It is kind of jumpy. But hopefully I've got this right. If I tilt it too much, I'll put it on the wrong one. There we go.
Yeah, it doesn't come on until it's level or something, right?
Yeah. If I can get it to work right.
$40 is fallible, okay? But
Yeah. Make sure it works right.
you got to shake it. Yeah.
Here we go. Yeah, I didn't quite have it click. Yeah. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah. So when it's level, it comes on. Yeah,
That way you
that's
know
pretty
it's
good.
not level. Because that's the whole point you're wanting to know from wherever this position's at, from the floor to wherever the hell this thing is at. That's the difference in feet from where that dude has hit the survey rod.
HI, height
You
to
just
instrument.
you subtract. That's 4 feet, 3 feet, whatever the heck it is. Yeah, just with a yardstick sitting right on top of it, it'd be 3 feet, right? So you just take 3 foot off of whatever it hit, and that's where you're at. That's the elevation you're at, or how high you are, the difference in elevation from where you were. All right. There are various ways of doing it. The hand level works real well. This one, the laser level works real well. The water bottle about halfway finished works well too. That's level. That's not. That's level. So
Many
there are
ways.
different But
Well,
you can figure it out yourself close enough. Right?
All right. There's one more. Tan pit. Okay? It's not a very old pit, is it? I mean, we've only mined that thing twice, right? So we started with a high wall over here. Yeah, well, we didn't start with a high wall, but we got a high wall over here. And there was a drill hole right here at the very corner of that pit. Okay? Well, if you've mined down here and you've got your benches, your benches are, out there now, and you want to know where you're at, and you got a drill hole right there, you already got an elevation right here. Drop a tape. Tape measures don't lie too much. I guess they do. It just depends on who's on the smart end of it. But either way, there's a lot of different ways to get an elevation to know where you're at with a drill log. If you're out in the pit, I do not suggest using your phone to get your elevation, because what's the accuracy of that? 12 to 15 feet? I've seen it lie to me pretty bad, to the point that, in fact, I've stood in one spot getting an elevation several times with the phone, and I got 3 different big-time different elevations. So it's just not that trustworthy. It's just a general thing. But if you're out in the mine and you're just thinking it's impossible to get that, give us a call. We'll come out there and shoot the thing in, and we'll handle it. The other thing, too, in Garrison, I don't know, did you ever mine Garrison? Over in Garrison, we put in, around the perimeter of the thing, we put in some poles. Remember that? And we put in some poles every 200 feet. And that was to show the grid. And then we actually came around the other side, and that ain't working too well, but we had poles all around it, so we could stand here and here knowing what those poles were, and we could just eyeball where we were at in that mine. So there's a whole lot of different ways that you can get creative to find out what's going on, to let these drill logs help you as much as possible. Because you've got raw data and fire data. So it's really good to have, you get a drill log and a map, you should be able to really help yourself along. But we want to help you too, okay? Any questions on this? Okay, where are we at? Let's just go ahead and ease right on into reserves. Flow chart. Okay, I want to talk about exploration a little bit. Some of our responsibilities. I don't know, some of you may know this. I know Luke does, and Jim, and of course we do, but some of you don't. But in the world we live in, your raw materials, we're monitoring those things every year. We always send out, and I got forms in there that we could look at too, but we want to know what the plant used throughout the year, because what we're after is a 30-year reserve for each raw material that we mine. We don't have that everywhere, but we have it in most of it, okay? So if it's green, we're in good shape. Nobody's got an issue. If it's less than 30 years and above 10, it's amber. That means it's on the caution. Now we're watching it. And then if it's less than 10 years, of course, it gets a lot of attention. Once a year, we have what we call a strategic raw material review with Mr. Knauts and Watson and Mickey. And we review all the raw materials with them that we have in Acme Brick. If something's less than 10 years, that gets the most attention. So they make these decisions on whether or not we still need that component to make that product, if we need to turn on an exploration job and go out and find more of it, or if we just want it to go away, one or the other. That's their call, not mine. They understand the sales, they understand the need for that, and so it kind of dictates to us what we're going to do the rest of the year. In fact, a couple of these in the amber turned on an exploration job in Alabama last year, and also Tulsa. We were successful in both of those, I think the Alabama one, Richard and I turned on an exploration job, and within a month, we were standing on the property that we own today. Within a month. And we got this property about 7.5 miles from the plant. So we do things in a very serious way, studying the geology, which is not easy in Alabama with everything vertical over there. But we were lucky enough to find the formation close enough to that plant within this 10-mile area that we wanted. So we'll go 10 miles, then we'll go 20, 30, 40, 50. When it starts getting 50 miles or more, maybe not feasible. Okay? So anyway, we were successful there. And then in Tulsa, we turned on an exploration job there and drilled a property out that was right across the street from a mine that we already have. We were lucky enough to have a property owner there that just owned everything. So he was pretty willing to make a little money on Acme Brick and us to secure some how much would we buy 140 acres from that guy, I think, wasn't it? Sure. And it was 250 in Alabama. So that's pretty good reserves. I can't remember in Alabama we added 33 years of reserves to them on top of what they already had, so they're way in the green. And in Tulsa, I don't remember what the reserves were.
The curious thing though is that even though it's right across the street, it's not exactly the same.
That's true. Yeah.
You know, largely the same. Not exact, not a carbon copy. It's not look across the street, just buy it and don't worry about testing it. No, it's a good idea to test it.
So if you really look at this flow chart, what it's doing is it's telling you what it'll turn on. See, when it's in the green, there's no action. But if it's in the amber or the red, these things start to come about. Okay? So we'll go out and identify properties. We get the regional management involved, vice president involved. The preliminary title search, I mean, we have to do all that kind of stuff. Purchase option contracts, then we got to get the property owner to sign up. Drill the property out. The environmental aspect of it, well, we got a nice environmental department now that helps us out quite a bit. Sometimes they hurt us. Did we go all the way to the bottom of that thing? Oh, okay. So there's quite a bit to this thing, as you guys can see. I wanted to see what the last thing was. Yeah, okay, well, let's keep going. So we close on the property at the very end of it. And then down here, the drilling program. So whenever we send these drill requests out to you guys, take them kind of seriously, because if you need something to help you with your 5-year mine plan, that's what we're here for. So we're here for production and exploration. Okay? So this is just when you guys start failing and are getting a little weak somewhere in your raw material reserves, it's going to get turned on despite everything else if we need the material. But if you're needing it in your production for your stockpiling and to understand your materials better, we do that also. Okay? That's really all I got on that. Any questions?
What was the time frame on that flow chart you just said on the steep property in Alabama?
Whew. Well, technically, it took a year, but we were able to put our feet on that. Well, it was less than a month. In 2 weeks, we had our feet on the ground of the property that we bought. In 2 weeks. And that was a lot of work that had gone on in that. Richard was in one part of Alabama, I was in another, and then we came together on this property. That part was easy. The issue in Alabama was we had to buy not only the property, but we had to buy the mineral rights, or at least lease them. Because in Alabama, under the topsoil, it's all minerals. Clay, shale, gravel. They consider it all. They know what they're doing over there, how to make money. So, I guess. But it was.
There can be a considerable time frame from the acquisition of another piece of property for a component that you're running out of. So you want that's why it's 10 years or below, because you're going to have probably 2 or 3 years to not only acquire that property, but go through all the appropriate testing here at the lab and at the plant to make that seamlessly, right, integrate into what you're doing, and so you don't have any sort of interruption and everything moves along nicely.
So that time frame, we were on the property real quick. The POC, purchase option contract, we could have had that signed the next day. But we had to wait on the purchase option contract until we could see if we could secure the minerals. What the hell good is it going to do to buy the property if we can't go mine it, you know? And that we had to bring in the lawyers on that one. So they had to go back and forth with some people in Houston that own the mineral rights in Alabama, and it was a dog. And so once we finally got that secured, the drillers went out there, the drill crew, and they knocked out some strategically located drill holes. We had an agreement with the mineral folks to drill 27 holes. That's it. This was 500 acres we were looking at. So that 27 holes, we had to put that in the best place that we figured just to tell us if the raw material was there or not. Okay? So we did that. That drill out, and it didn't make us too nervous because eventually it started becoming pretty consistent. The material did. And that's good. So when you got hills out there like that and you're still getting fairly consistent material, something's right. So we wound up buying half of that property at $250. So by the time we got on the property, drilled it, we did our part in a couple of months. And then Matt, you did your part in another month or so, because it was fast and furious, because we were running out of time on our purchase option contract for 90 days. Once I got the property owner to sign it, we had 90 days to do our due diligence out there. Anyway, that was interesting. So, and the Tulsa one, we had a little bit more time to do that one, but the time frame on that one, start to finish, was less than a year. So that was pretty good. So we go through quite a bit to find these new raw materials for you guys. So, best mining practice after that is what follows. That's really all I've got on this part of the flow chart. And I guess next, Richard, you're going to get into mapping. And you're not just going to listen to us all day. What you got?
Before you move on.
Yes?
As far as the material, Matt, let's say Steve, the material that we've been talking about, Alabama. Once we drilled it and got samples back here, just briefly, how did we come to a decision of yes or no on the property? How did that work? Was it just easily done, or what did we have to do?
Well, everything that they went out and drilled, when you saw Trey's presentation, every one of those bags we had to process and turn into a set of fired bars. And basically we ended up laying them out and visually looking at them, because we had the test results, PSEs, things like that. Those are pretty obvious comparing them to the current raw materials of that plant. But color was also a concern there. And so we basically would lay, like he's got some of these bars laid out over here, and as some of you have been through the lab, you've seen our war room back there where you lay them out in a big area to kind of give you a small scale representation of the entire property. And then you have everybody, myself, Jim, Bobby, Mr. Watson, David Mickey, wasn't Luke, Clark, not Luke, but Clark, regional production manager, everybody in there taking a look at what the fired results are and how they spread out across the whole property, and making a decision as far as.
Well, we're also making a recommendation.
Yeah.
So, it's not just them looking at it saying, okay, well, we like this or don't like that. It's us telling them, we recommend you buy or don't buy this property.
It's a good point. They end up asking us that. Well, what does your experience tell you?
Well, we got to back it up. We can't say, yeah, we recommend you buy it. We got to prove to you why you can buy it. So we did some composite work on that too, which really helped.
Yeah, you try to you get all your individual samples, and then you have to try to represent what
current body,
the entire property or a good chunk of it is going to look like. Because when you guys are doing the mining, you're usually not how many acres was Steve, whatever, but you're not going to mine all of it at one time. So in that case, we actually ended up with 3 different composites to kind of represent 3 different parts of the property.
That's right.
And we're able to look at that and compare that, especially to the current materials that the plant is using, and that helped us to make a decision.
And the decision was not easy.
No,
it was not straightforward.
No.
Not clear cut.
It was not clear cut at all.
No.
I'd have to say as the samples were coming out and getting laid on the table one at a time over a course of a few weeks, we'd go back there and look at them and just shake our heads and say, this isn't going to work. This isn't looking good, guys. Bobby's over here going, man, I think it's better than you guys think. Anyway, all the data had to come together, get all put out there and look at it all on the board, and the pros and cons, because there are cons of the property. Now,
There's rock out there.
It isn't a perfect scenario, but in the end, the pros outweighed the cons, and we decided we could make a brick out of it. And it would probably be a pretty good brick. So, this wasn't an easy one.
It's going to come down to the mining. Because, you know, we're mixing a yellow shale with a blue shale, and ordinarily the blue shales give us fits, you know. Carbon goes up, James Tuggle. Carbon goes up, and, you know, you just think of Bridgeport, you know, and we don't even want to talk about Bridgeport, but you know, it's all kind of problems. But over here, magically, the blue shale over there really added some good strength to this brick. All of a sudden, we weren't seeing the problems that we normally saw with the blue shale. So that was the saving grace right there. And yes, I was saying it was going to work because I'm a very positive thinking guy, right? But anyway, really, if it didn't work out, I would have been the first one to say, no way, no, you know? Okay.